Dr. Hirschfield, my question for you as a researcher is, knowing PSC is a rare disease group, if you were to see a certain number of surveys, whether it's 100 versus 500 versus 1,000, is there a number that would really make you say, oh my gosh, this is impressive?
Well, look, I mean, that's a great question. So PSC is really important disease. PSC are the group of patients hepatologists want most to benefit from new drugs and new therapies that change what happens to them, because it's the patient group where the patients, families, and clinicians lose the most sleep. Now, as I do more and more research into rare disease, I really do see the power of numbers. And whilst I'm always interested in, single case reports, single center series, we've learned that when I see results from 500, 1,000, 5,000 patients put together, because people have all spoken and taken part, the power of the message is that much greater. It's not perfect. There's lots of methodological issues. But as you increase the numbers, as you get into the thousands, you really start to pick up very clear messages. They resonate, they fall into buckets. But at the same time, you might pick up subtle messages in smaller groups because you did have large numbers. So if PSC Partners is pushing to try and get as big a patient voice as possible to understand the challenges and opportunities for patients living with PSC, I can't tell you how important it is for everyone to take part. The more people that speak, the better. We rely on the small number of voices who run patient charities such as PSC Partners, but they know and we know that they're a tiny proportion of the whole patient burden, and everyone's got something to say, and we'll hear it much better if you all just take a few minutes and fill it out and give your perspective. And it's okay to say that your PSC doesn't bother you, for example, because it's just as important to understand that for some people, life goes on for a long time, whereas for other people, it's a real issue. And it allows us to understand that if we are to develop the right trials, to get the right drugs as quickly as possible, we can work out who to target, when to target, and how to target.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. And I think the last question that I'd really want you to speak to is, our Voices survey is available through the PSC registry, and we're hoping that taking it through the registry will encourage other researchers to want to look at those results. Do you think that that will have an impact on increasing further research?
Without doubt. I mean, the message is, if you can link data between an opinion on something to more information about the disease, because you've got the clinical records, you've got what we call linkage, you've got much greater opportunities to take the ideas forward, to develop them, to see whether or not there's something that when you probe it, you can go forward. And so PSC Partners has this opportunity because of its registry. It's not the only registry in PSC, but it's a very powerful registry because it's patient-led, to say, okay, well, this is what people said, but actually, because they took it through our registry website, through our platform, we can, if you're interested as an investigator or as an interested patient or as an interested industry or an interested regulator, we can actually say with more certainty, this wasn't just random people who we think have PSC. We know they've got PSC because they provided their clinical information. We know more about where they are in their journey with PSC. Is it pre-transplant, post-transplant? Is it very early disease? Is it childhood disease? Is it, later in life disease? And that really then says how you might design the next study, how you might go about doing the next study efficiently and effectively. And I guess what you're hoping to be is always a catalyst, because nothing in research is easy, but you're hoping that, because we have a global audience, there are lots of bright people around, lots of smart patients, lots of smart investigators, lots of smart trainee doctors who have good ideas. And some of those ideas don't need much financial resource, they just need access to data. And you might be the catalyst. They might say, well, that's a really great question. I actually saw that in clinic, and now I hear it from your voices survey that actually other people have said the same thing. I'm actually quite interested. How can I take this forward? And, you know, the truth is that, you know, particularly in academic worlds, we live in ivory towers, but the more people we have thinking about PSC, the more good ideas, the more likely that one of those ideas is going to impact what we actually want. So we're not in the business of closing the door to good ideas. We should be in the business of opening as many doors as possible.
Thank you so much. That's amazing information and really encouraging. So, do you have final words for the Our Voices survey?
Just to say, I think it's a really well-timed, important initiative. We being patients, carers, investigators, sponsors, regulators, scientists, ethics boards, need to have real-world information about a disease to get the best clinical trials. And we know that each clinical trial is not perfect, it's not meant to be, it's not necessarily easy. It's a risky business. But, you know, each time you do one, hopefully the next one's better. And eventually, you know, we'll look back and say, well, we don't need so many clinical trials in PSC because we've made progress. So, you know, that's our goal. We realize that's a medium to long-term goal. But each piece of the puzzle keeps people excited, makes people take risks, and PSCers need people outside of the patient group and outside of healthcare institutions to take risks on their disease, to make new drugs, to make them live longer.
Great. Thank you so much. This was really helpful.